I attempted to complete the TDS Summer Battle Pass, however to make it more challenging, I can only use towers when I get the skins for them, meaning that since I start with none, I can't use any towers, so I joined Polluted Wastelands, since it gives increased rewards, and attempted to solo, and then I lost on wave 4, because of course with no towers, I had to fully rely on teammates to carry me. So I then hopped in a duo game on Fallen. My teammate placed gladiators, farms, and accelerators while I watched, but since I was passively reducing the amount of money he got, when the Fallens came, they got through and ended the run. But I did earn 80 seashells, putting me closer to the 225 goal for tier 1. I then got into a quad up game, so my lack of towers would be less impactful, and surprisingly we actually somehow managed to beat Molten mode, mainly thanks to some turrets and rangers. This got me enough seashells to complete the first tier and get the scout skin. I don't really like the skin itself as it's just pretty basic, but since I do have the gold perk, it's actually a pretty good tower. So moving into future games, it was good to actually be able to somewhat contribute. However, things did not immediately improve as I went on a 4-game losing streak, constantly dying in the early to mid game. I decided to try to break this losing streak by attempting a solo Molten game with only Gold Scout. Gold Scout has decent DPS, but with it being so cheap I was able to place a ton of them. However, it is still fairly weak for the late game, and I ended up losing. Although not until I made it to wave 40, earning 175 shells, which was enough to unlock tier 2's militant skin. Unfortunately, the skin itself is once again pretty bland, and unlike Gold Scout, militant is not a very good tower. So I played some more standard maps, getting 2 more Molten wins, but then had a very tough Fallen run. My team's towers of regular minigunner, pyromancer, and soldier just weren't very strong. With me not being able to help out much, we were struggling heavily, causing us to lose to some speedy bosses. But all in all, this brought me within 200 shells of tier 3. I had the interesting contrast of one very new player and one very experienced player. The highlight of my gameplay was when I used the slope section of the map to stack a lot of militants, saving a lot of space. We didn't have a lot of DPS, and things were looking shaky as the Molten boss progressed past our initial force of towers. But thankfully, it was a very long map, and with one teammate moving towers, we did triumph. So from there, I joined a solo Fallen game, and by just surviving as long as I could, I got the last shells I needed to unlock tier 3 and the pyromancer skin. While pyromancer as a tower isn't great, the skin itself is definitely top tier. This is where the shells required for a tier start to get pretty ridiculous, as the next skin required 1050 shells. I did actually get my first Fallen win of the challenge, mainly thanks to the raw power of Accelerator, as even in a game where only one person had it, with the help of some rangers and militants and some support, it was still strong enough to pretty much carry the run and kill a Fallen king. I did a lot of miscellaneous runs, trying Polluted Wastelands a few more times, but never finding any real success, losing an early game on Fallen, and actually soloing a Molten game, which did end incredibly closely, only killing the boss right at the end of the path. I won another Molten game, mainly off the back of some minigunners, and got into the last game of the tier, a Fallen round on Abandoned City. This map is one of the more awkward in the game, with big buildings disrupting the ground space, and this proved to be a problem as one of my teammates placed a DJ at the back of the map, a spot with more space for towers, but it meant that the zombies could get much further along the path. We were able to kill a tank, but only barely, and moving into wave 30 onwards, it felt like only a matter of time. Till on wave 37, we lost to another tank, but it was still enough to get the second to last tier and the beach minigunner skin. I think the contrast between the swimwear and military gear is kind of funny, but the skin itself is still somewhat bland. But more importantly is the tower itself, as since I have the golden perk, it is a very strong late game DPS, something my loadout was missing. Final tier is by far the most expensive, costing 1400 shells, so I got to grinding for the next 2.5 hours. I had another strange experience on Crossroads, losing that game, and then losing yet another Fallen game on Simplicity. I managed to win 2 more Fallen games, both on Harbor, and then 2 more Molten games, also both on Harbor. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Finally, I was only 55 shells from the final tier, so I played one last game on the summer map, and although I did lose, I earned enough shells to finally finish the summer battle pass, getting the commander skin. Pretty nice skin with a very elaborate final model, so please consider subscribing if you're not.